Booze. Many of you have asked about canning, and we are going to do it today. So if you are interested in learning how to can meatballs, because who doesn't love meatballs, then stay tuned to this next episode of Booze Cruise.
Hi, I'm Terrell.
And I'm David.
I am 34 years old.
Alright, so we are starting out with a little over 6 pounds of lean ground beef. This is 88% lean. It's going to go into this bowl, and then we are going to season it up, and I'll show you what we are going to season it with. So all the meat in the bowl. Alright everyone, so let's season this meat. If you hear sounds in the background, Jarell is over there playing video games. So we are both here. So first up, coarse ground black pepper. And I'm not going to tell you exactly how much I'm using. Like, I mean, it's to your taste. This is chopped onions. Normally you would use, and we're going to use a fair amount of these because there is a lot of meat. I mean, it's 6 pounds of meat. Normally in meatballs, you would, this is garlic powder, you would use breadcrumbs, but you cannot can breadcrumbs. You can't can carbs. So we're not going to be adding them into this particular mix. That's some granulated onion. So I'm going to put in some Lowry seasoned salt, and this is the only salt I'm going to be using in here. Lowry's is just good because it adds some extra seasoning. We're not going to put too much in there because we're also going to use Tony Chachere's, and there is some salt in that. I like them a little spicy. And this is the rest of this grated Parmesan. This is also a pretty good binder. So we're going to do that. We're not going to use any eggs or anything like that. Let's just use the rest of this. So I am also going to add in some fresh garlic and some fresh onions, I believe. All right, so adding in some fresh garlic. I cleared the decks. A heaping, just a giant tablespoon. I mean, listen, it's garlic. We need it. Also going to add in some fresh chopped onions. I know we have the dehydrated onions in there and onion powder, but this is a different thing, and it adds some moisture to the meatballs. Also, here's a tip. So these, if you're only using a part of a bag, well, you can use, I keep rubber bands, like office rubber bands, and I put these like this, and then when you put it back inside of your freezer, they don't just fall everywhere. So keep some rubber bands in for a little bit of extra spice. I'm also gonna add some oregano leaves and some Italian seasoning. I just take the tops off for these, because you do want some green in there. If you have fresh parsley, that's a good time to add that. I have some green onions, but I'm not gonna add that only because we do have a fair amount of onions in here. So this is good. Now, clean hands, obviously washed hands, pull up your sleeves, take off your rings, any of that, clear your space. And the only way to really, really get in there, honestly, is with your hands. You gotta break it all up. So I am going to, like I said, make meatballs, and I'm gonna fill up an entire tray and pre-cook these meatballs. And anything that doesn't fit on that tray, I'm actually just gonna mix this up and use it as meatloaf and then freeze them so that I can just throw it in the crock pot and take it out. All right, I'm gonna keep getting this mixed up, thoroughly mix it, and then I'll come back. So we're gonna go ahead and preheat the oven to 350. Okay, so everything is well mixed and in the bowl, and I'm gonna use my handy dandy ice cream scoop here, and we are going to start scooping out meatballs. I'm gonna see how many I can fit on this parchment lined baking sheet. You don't have to line it with parchment. There is enough fat in the beef that it won't stick, but I just like easy cleanup. So I'm gonna fill up this entire tray with the meatballs. Now we're gonna do it like this, but I'm gonna go back individually and form these into better, more uniform balls. And we are gonna cook these before we actually can them. Even though canning will cook them further, you just wanna cook them first because it's ground beef. There is a method called raw packing, which you can do with certain things, but in this instance, we are going to pre-cook the meatballs. Again, always check with the canning guidelines. You know, don't take it from me. But I always, you know, we cook them first. So I'm going to keep doing this, fill these up, and I'll bring you back. All right, so as you can see, I filled the entire sheet pan with meatballs. So this is just a way to make sure that they are all uniform and the same size. What I do now is I go back and I make them look nice and pretty. The way you do that, just if you never rolled a meatball before, you just take your 2 hands here, put your thumb in there, make a cupping motion, roll it around, and you then have a perfect meatball. So many people may be wondering, like, why canned meatballs? Canning in general, if you don't know what it is, it's basically just a way to preserve things and make things shelf stable. There's a lot of reasons why you might do this. This way, if you run out of freezer space, you can put things on your shelf. In the event that your freezer dies because of whatever, it could be electricity, your electricity went out, it could be that your freezer just died, and you have to find things to do with your food so they doesn't all spoil. This is a way to preserve food in that way. People have been doing it for years and years and years. I just got this canner because of that exact reason. You know, we had a smaller freezer, especially living in New York City. You don't have a ton of space, and we had this tiny little apartment freezer, and I just couldn't take advantage of sales and deals, especially where meat was concerned. And also things get freezer burnt. This way you don't have to worry about any of that. But also, this is literally the quickest, fastest, easiest way. Like for these, you just put them on your shelf, and then when you want to make something, you just open the can, heat it up, and there's a million things you can do with this. Some of the things that I plan to do with these, you can do spaghetti and meatballs, obviously. Swedish meatballs, just add some, you know, onions and make a gravy and some sour cream, and then you have Swedish meatballs. Also, for appetizers, if you just wanted to do some teriyaki meatballs, you can do that, you know, over noodles or over rice. And this is just in one of those days when you are in a hurry. You come home and you haven't thawed anything, and you need to throw together dinner really quickly. You go to your pantry and you shop for things that you've already done in advance. So I'm going to keep rolling out the rest of these meatballs, and there is some meat left, and I'm going to make those into meatloaf, and I'll show you that too. Those are going to go in the freezer. Okay, so now you see that they are all rolled out in uniform. This is basically how you would like them to look. You want them to all be relatively the same size. That way they cook at the same time. I'm gonna put these in a 350-degree oven for about 20 to 25 minutes. They don't have to be completely cooked through, but you do want them to be relatively cooked through. Okay, these are ready to go into the oven. We'll see in about 20 minutes. P.S. How cute is our little eat sign? While that's in the oven, I just wanted to show you guys a couple of other things that I've canned so you guys can see what we're doing here. So this is some ground beef that I canned. This is literally just ground beef. This is obviously some of the fat from in the beef. That's totally normal. So this you would just take out and you would brown it just like anything else. So this is like tacos, spaghetti sauce. This is shelf stable, ready to go. You just make sure that your seal is completely good. Like this is a good seal. You should be able to pick it up by the lid. And this is ready to go. Super, super fast. I'm what you call an ingredient canner. Like I didn't put anything other than like salt, pepper, garlic, all the things that you would normally just put, but nothing specific to a certain dish. Like this could be tacos. This could be stroganoff. This could be spaghetti, because I haven't added any of those extra things. Now this is canned chicken breast. So basically what you do here is this is could be tacos as well. It's basically could be shredded up. So if you wanted to make chicken salad or if you wanted to make chicken soup, this is just the broth in there. This is just like when you go to the store and you pay a ton of money for canned chicken, which they have near the tuna, except that I know what's in here and I know that it is all good, white meat chicken. And this is a meal in no time flat. Chicken fettuccine, anything you want. You just pop the top and you are all set. So yeah, these, the top of them, I have to wipe them down because, as you know, we moved. But yeah, so if anytime I want to throw together a really quick dinner, I can come right in and make this. Oh, also, we made chili with this, so good. So I am very excited to add meatballs to my shelves. All right, so with the leftover ground beef, which is this is how much we had, I'm gonna add some tomato ketchup, no sugar added. Again, you know, we guys are on keto and low carb, so this has 1 carb. I'm gonna add this to this ground beef and we're gonna make some meatloaf out of it. Now this is gonna go straight into the freezer. Again, with the meatballs, I didn't add any of this because I want them to be used however I want to at that time and not be stuck with a certain recipe. Also, I always keep a Sharpie in the kitchen and I label the bag. So this is meatloaf 628 because that is when I put them in the freezer. So I'm gonna mix all this up, put these in the bags, and I'll show you what it looks like while the meatballs are cooking. Once I mixed it up, I decided not to do too many meatloaves. I decided to make 1 good-sized meatloaf so that we could have some leftovers and maybe make some meatloaf sandwiches. Anyone else love meatloaf sandwiches? Comment down below, especially now that we have keto bread. My hands are wet because I washed them, and you should too. Wash your hands. All right, so while the meatballs are cooking, I'm gonna go ahead and I put a pot full of hot water, and I'm going to add 1 of these. This is Bare Bones bone broth. It's excellent, keto friendly. There are 3 carbohydrates and 1 fiber, and it has really good ingredients in there. This is basically for the broth to can with our meatballs because we are going to cover them in broth. It comes like this. It's super duper handy. You just pour it right in, and then we're going to let this get hot because hot meatballs, hot broth, hot canner. The jars are washed and sterilized. We're just gonna let this heat up. So this is my canning bin. Just some of the tools of the trade. Here's canning lids. We have wide mouth and we have regular mouth. These haven't been used. These are rings, canning salt. This is a jar lifter. This is a funnel, really important. This helps you to debubble. And if you are going to boil your lids, which the canning guidelines say that you don't have to anymore, they actually will seal without that. This is a magnet so that you can reach into the boiling water and get a lid like so. So these are some of the tools of the trade, and I keep them all in this bin on the open shelf. So this is my big mamma jamma. This is my giant Presto 32 quart pressure canner. I always take it out and I wash it and sanitize it before I use it, check the gauges, check the seal. This is the weight that goes on top. Definitely do your own research on how to can. Inside, the cans go in here. I always keep my extra racks. There's a rack in the bottom and I bought 2 extra racks. That way you can stack them. Never can without a rack in the bottom or all of your jars will bust. I, knock on wood, have never had that happen to me, but it can happen. So I'm gonna get this with water on to boil. And oh, another tip. Actually, I'll tell you in just a second. Fill it up. I'm not sure if you guys can see that, but there is actually a fill line in there. You don't wanna overfill your canner. All right, getting the canner on to boil. So here's my tip. Distilled white vinegar. This will keep your jars from clouding up. I put a little bit into the water, especially if you have hard water. We don't here, but just a splash will keep your jars looking really pretty on the outside. You don't have to do this, but they can cloud up otherwise. But if they do, you can always just get a cloth and wipe them down after the fact. But I like to do it in the actual water. So it's been about 20 minutes and the meatballs are out and they taste amazing. Yes, I tasted them and I will not be judged. So I put my funnel on one of the jars and this is how I do it. You literally just put the meatballs in the jar. Like, it's not, there's no science to this. Hopefully you guys can see. I like to kind of wiggle them down a little and I always come back and see. I fit, I don't know, I would say like maybe, these are pint jars, so they're not as big as some of the others, but you can always kind of go and finagle some more inside there. I like doing, you know, smaller jars sometimes because if you just want it to be a small snack or a lunch or something like that, then this is the perfect amount in the jar. Again, don't forget, you can always open more than one jar. So I'm just gonna keep filling these jars and... Okay, so it looks like one tray gave me 8 jars of meatballs. This is our beef bone broth that we heated up. And what I'm gonna do is get super close and we are going to add in liquid on top of those. Hopefully you guys can see that. Actually, let me move this forward so you guys can maybe get a better view and maybe see it a little bit better. Hopefully you guys can see that. Oh, don't lose your funnel. So we want 1/2 inch headspace. You don't want to fill them all the way, and make sure that you finagle your meatballs in there so that they do go down, because sometimes, see this? This is perfect. See, it's about 1/2 inch headspace. And now you don't have to do bone broth like I did. If you want, you can just use water because the meatballs will make their own broth. There's nothing saying that you absolutely have to use bone broth. It's just I had it, and my philosophy is anytime you can add flavor, I think you should. But that's just me in my house. If you don't have it, you don't have it. And trust me, if I didn't have it, that wouldn't keep me from canning these meatballs. So you just want to fill them all to 1/2 inch headspace. And there is a very, very important step. After this, what you want to do is you want to rub the rim, wipe the rim of each jar with vinegar. The reason for this is because you never want to have some, oh, this is just a little bit, there we go. You never want to have a bunch of fat around the rim, especially if you're doing fatty meats like sausage or something like that, because it can tamper with the seal. You won't get a good seal. But if you rub it with vinegar, that cuts the fat and it makes sure you have a great seal. All right, so I'm gonna fill the rest of these jars and then we're gonna wipe them with vinegar. Oh, also really important, when you're doing that, make sure that you are rubbing the side of the jars to make sure that there are no chips, because that could also break. Another really important step to canning is to debubble. You just want to go around with your tool. Remember I said it was a little debubbler. You just want to go around and move those all around and make sure that there are no hidden bubbles. I just go all the way around the jars. It's a little less likely that you'll have a bunch of bubbles with something like meatballs because they're contained. But if you're doing something like chicken or ground beef or jams and things like that, there are air bubbles that can get trapped, and you don't want that because that's how you get botulism, which, as you can imagine, no one wants. So make sure you go around each one of them. And I just go all the way around. Also, make sure that you are doing it with something plastic. You don't want to do this with like a butter knife or anything, because that would chip your jars. And you want to make sure you're doing it gently because you don't want to break up your meatballs. Like, you worked so hard to get them in there. So make sure that you debubble. Really, really important. Take the time. Okay, so I have a small dish of just white vinegar here. And what you do is I take a paper towel, obviously an unused clean paper towel, and I dip it in straight vinegar, and I go all the way around the rim, literally completely around it, making sure that there is no remnants of whatever you are making inside. And like I said, this just gets all the fat or anything that's on the rims out, and make sure that you have a good seal. So I'm gonna go around all of them, and then we're gonna put some lids on. So now these have all been wiped with vinegar, and I just go around and I place the lids right on top. Again, it used to be that you would soak these in simmering water, but the canning guidelines say that you do not need to do that anymore. So if you still want to do that, go ahead. If not, then don't, because I have never had any issues with my seals. Now, these are not reusable. I repeat that. Your canning lids are not reusable, but your rings are. So after they are all placed on, careful, these jars are hot. You want to screw them on and just fingertip tight. That means just use the tip of your fingers. And now I'm a big guy, I'm 6'3", I'm muscular. I'm not going to use all of my might. You know, fingertip is different for everyone else, but the idea is that you just don't want them to be super, super tight. I know that sounds crazy, but you don't want it to be tight because you want to give them a chance to expand and move a little so that they can get their seal. So after all of these are on, we're going to go over to the canner. As you can see, the water is simmering and there is a rack in the bottom. So you just want to place your jars right into your canner, and how many you can fit will be different depending on how big your canner is, but you definitely want to give them space. You don't want the jars to be touching. I can fit this in one layer. Now I do, like you saw before, I do have other racks, so I could double stack these, and this is the perfect amount for my canner. So this goes right on there, and we're gonna get the lid on. All right, so we're gonna put the lid on. It goes right on top, and then you have to twist until it is absolutely sealed, and then I'm gonna turn up the heat. It was simmering. Hot jars, hot canner. It's simmering. Notice there is not the weight. The weight will come on later. So what we're gonna do is we're going to let this heat up until there is a steady vent of stream. And then I'm gonna set a timer for 10 minutes. So it's gonna build up pressure, and then there'll be a steam. I'm gonna show you what it looks like. It has to be a steady vent, and then you set a timer for 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes, then we're gonna place our weight on. These are pints and it's meat, so it's gonna process for 75 minutes at 11 pounds of pressure. If they were bigger jars, it would be 95 minutes, but because they're only pints, it's 75 minutes at 11 pounds of pressure, and you do have to watch it to make sure that it maintains pressure. You don't want it to go below the pressure, because then you have to start your timer all over again. So I'm gonna bring you back when we have a steady vent of stream. Yay! Okay, do y'all see that? That is a steady stream of pressure. It is billowing. I don't know if you guys can see it because of the lighting. So now we can set the timer for 10 minutes. Steady steam. 3, 2, 1. Beep. All right, the timer has gone off, and it is moving and a grooving. This is a new stove. Obviously, I've not canned on this one, and it has this quick boil situation. So I hope it doesn't break my jars or anything. All right, so we're gonna put our weight on. Be careful when doing this. Obviously, it is hot. We're gonna put the weight on, and we are gonna wait for this gauge to come up to 11 pounds of pressure. That's right around there, 11 pounds of pressure. And then once it gets there, we are going to set a timer for 75 minutes. We are quickly approaching 11 pounds of pressure. So you just wanna turn it down just a little bit. Now, you're gonna have to kind of maneuver it to make sure that it stays within those, depending on your oven. And also I wanted to mention that it's different for everyone, so you're gonna have to check your altitude to see at what pound of pressure that you're gonna can at. But for me, it's 11 pounds of pressure. So we're gonna set a timer for 75 minutes, and we're gonna keep it at 11 pounds or near 11 pounds of pressure. You don't want it to go too far up, and it will continue to climb. So just play with it, and you'll find that sweet spot, okay? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Beep, beep. Yay! All right, now, this is what you do. Turn off your canner. Don't touch it. Don't do anything. Don't jiggle this. Don't mess with the top. Literally wait until this goes all the way to the 0. Could you tell I could not tell where my finger was? All the way to the 0. And then you can take it off. Don't mess with it. And for goodness sakes, as Bev Wolfe says, do not plunge it into cold water to make it come down faster. Don't do any of that. That's dangerous. Don't do that. I'll see you when it's on 0. Alright guys, so it just unpressurized. It's down to 0. I'm going to go ahead and open it. Always open it away from you. Also, you can tell with the weight, there is no sound or anything. Open it away from you. And there are our amazing meatballs. Yay! Hopefully none of them busted. It makes me nervous because this is a new, like I said, this is a different oven that I'm used to. So you get your jar lifter and you bring them right out. Don't turn them side to side, none of that. And look at that. They're still bubbling inside. I'll show you guys. I'm going to put them on a towel over here. There's one. Looks fantastic. 2. Still boiling. That is a great sign. Alright, I'm going to get them all out. And I'll bring you guys back and show you. Yay! Guys, so here they are. They all look fantastic. No breaks. I'm always worried about breaks, especially with a new stove, because you just don't want it to get too hot, but no breaks. A lot of liquid didn't siphon off, meaning that it's the perfect head space. You can see them boiling in there. Isn't that crazy? Each one of them is boiling inside. Oh, do you hear that? That is the ping. That is exactly what you want to hear. That means that they are sealing. If you're wondering how to tell if it's sealed or not, the tops of these, I can't touch them because they're like hot. Oh, you hear it? Ah! That's what you want to hear. That means it's... Oh my God, look at this one.
Hi.
I'm over here working, slaving away in this kitchen. He is...
It's Sunday fun day.
Yes, and I am being productive. I hear the pings. I'm so excited. Ah! Okay, so guys... We're going to let these completely cool, cover them with a towel so that you don't get any drafts or anything like that. Once they are completely cooled, they can even stay overnight. You take your rings off, again, those are reusable, and then you can rinse the outside of your jars, wash them up, and make sure that they are nice and clean, and then you can put them right on your shelves. Hopefully you guys learned something. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I now have 8 jars of meatballs that are ready for soup or spaghetti or anything. If you guys enjoyed these videos and want some more, make sure that you subscribe. It's at Booze Cruise. That's at BOOSCRUIZ. Because you're worth it. E. Alright, love you guys. Bye, Booze.